How's it going, everybody? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And I am so thrilled to have these two guests with me today. We have Scott Dunbier coming back again. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing, pal?
Always a pleasure, sir. And for the first time on Near Mint Condition, J. Scott Campbell.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
I'm excellent, Omar. Thanks for having me on here. I'm happy to make my debut today.
Dude, I've been wanting to talk to you for years, so it makes me happy to actually get. I've met you before at a couple of conventions.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's probably in the 90s sometime. But I never had a chance to interview you and talk to you and share my Nintendo Power story with you.
Yes. I love a good Nintendo Power story. It takes and in the 90s, that's very apropos for today's discussion too. So you met me when this book we're talking about today was brand new, which is pretty cool.
It's I go back. So I've known your name since that Nintendo Power magazine because you were the kid that beat out every one of us for the Nintendo Power contest.
Surprise,
it could have been, man. That's so cool. And forever, right? Like it's there. You just became a part of this geekdom, and then eventually, my goodness, from that, the next place I saw your name, I recognized it too. I was like, I know that art style, man.
That's amazing that you made that connection. You know, it's funny. That went undetected for a very long time. It kind of really surfaced around the CGC era because people started because people started like sending those in to get CGC'd, and then it became a thing, and then people started noticing it on. Really? Yeah, because I think they keep such a good. I forget. There's a term they have for the census, I think they call it, on there, where you can see what people are. Everything kind of links together, and people started seeing that pop up in my rankings, and I think people are like, "What is this?" And I think it's people started putting it together, but I'd say the first half of my career, nobody ever brought that up ever. And then now it's like pretty regularly that
now it's out there.
I think every CGC signing, there's got to be like 7 or 8 of them that pop through. And it's always funny to see them because
that issue of Nintendo Power, that was what, 1989, right? 1989?
Sounds about right. Sometimes I get a little bit fuzzy about those dates. I always say late 80s, but that was probably because I got into the comic book industry officially in 93. So that was about 4 years beforehand. So I think it was 15 or 16, something like that. So
hear me out, Scott. Nintendo Power Artist. Nintendo Power Artist Edition.
Yes.
How did you go from that? Like that was something that they did for fans and you ended up winning. How did you go from that to the next thing I saw was an ad for Gen X, which eventually would become Gen 13.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of time in between those two things. I mean, I was always entering art contests anytime I saw one back then. Mm-hmm. Previous to that, I won like a local contest, which was like at my local video store for it was a Disney contest where you drew the Disney characters, and I think I won a collection of Disney videos or something like that. And then I think even shortly after that, I had some artwork appear in like the Sega magazine that was the equivalent of but that was much lesser known. It was just like an art section in the back of the magazine. But I was always like sending stuff in, and so I think when Jim Lee had his talent search which was kind of crazy at the time because everything I had read up until the point where Image Comics started was that you have to pretty much like pound the pavement and like work your ass off and send in sample after sample after sample because Marvel's not going to hire you. They're not looking for you. You have to convince them to hire you. And then lo and behold, this art contest comes out, or this talent search through Jim Lee in Wildcats #2. And I was like, oh my God, they're actually asking. They're looking for samples. This is crazy. And I very quickly, I think in a week's time, put together, I think 3 sample pages. I mean, I was ready to go. I knew that, if you throw in your samples, you could put a couple of interior pages, do a pinup or a cover. I drew his characters. I didn't draw my characters. I was like, draw his characters, put them in a manila envelope and sent it off. I even drew on the envelope itself to try to catch the attention. Like I did every trick in the book because I entered all these contests. So I was like, okay, this isn't my first rodeo. I know how this goes. And I had the self-confidence that maybe I could get in because I'd won these other contests. So, and he actually ended up calling me, I think within a week of sending in the sample. So, either that envelope worked where he saw the artwork on the cover, or I never actually asked him. I should have actually asked him. I was too shy probably back in the day, but probably it'd be fun to know if that actually worked. Because now granted, these days, kids trying to get in or young people trying to get in now, they would probably send it in an email or something. Try to get spotted on Instagram or something. The idea of packaging your artwork up and sending it in, I don't think anybody even would do that anymore.
So how did he? When he called you, how did you react to that? I mean, were you like, "Who is this really?" Or were you like just shocked? And
I think my mother actually said I think she knew enough that I had sent her these samples and said, I think Jim Lee tried calling for you today. Like,
she knew the name, Jim Lee.
Yeah, she knew the name, and I said, oh my God! First of all, I freaked out that I missed the call because you don't want to think like somehow it's over if you miss the call, But she said he was going to call back and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well that's this is the old days with the phone in the kitchen on the wall with the cord. that whole thing. Yeah. I'm really dating myself now, but yeah. So it's like, he just called me up. I think maybe the next day he tried again, and he basically said he loved the samples and was interested if I would be open to moving to San Diego, which of course I entered the contest with that in mind. So yeah, and I think I ended up moving like a month later. I think I did my very first published work that he published of mine was in the Homage swimsuit issue, which was kind of like their answer to the Marvel swimsuit issue at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew those ones while I was still at my house. And he said, "Do you want to ink them yourself?" And I was like, "Sure." The inks look horrible. But it's like that was my first printed work, and that was before I even got out to San Diego. And then everything kind of happened from there. I think Gen 13 ended up coming together and coming out and being printed maybe after I had been there for like 6 or 9 months. I wasn't a full year by the time that came out.
That was fast. How old were you at that time?
I was 19 when I moved out there. So
man, young talent. Like to have
it was crazy
at that age.
And Scott has a funny story about that too. Actually, I know you love telling that story, Scott. But
which story?
There's a story you love talking about from that time when Jim was like, "Hey, check out this guy I found."
All right, so I lived in New York at the time before I moved out to California to work also at WildStorm, and Jim used to send me faxes because it's back in the old days before sending emails. Mm-hmm. So he sent me he called me up and he said, "I got this guy. You're gonna love this guy's stuff. You got to see it. He's gonna be huge." And I'm like, sure, send it. So he sent me faxes of J. Scott stuff, and I looked at it and I called Jim back and I said, "Man, I do not know what you see in this guy."
True story.
And it is a true story, and it's but it shows that first, I was obviously wrong, but secondly, I will say that his earlier work was not the best work in the world, but it had a lot of potential, and then he steadily grew very quickly. I mean, even in the Gen 13 miniseries, you can see that he made big leaps and bounds. The earlier issues are, so-so, but, by the time he got to issue like 3 and especially 4 and 5, there was really a big difference in the work. And then there was a gigantic difference when he went to the Gen 13 ongoing. And, I'll let J. Scott talk about that if he wants. But
well, it was interesting, Omar, because I never in a million years would have thought my absolute favorite like idols would I'd be working in their studio like right off the bat. Like, I mean, this studio had Mark Silvestri, it had Jim, it had Will Spartaccio, it had Scott Williams. Like, it was like, to me, it was like you were jumping from like novice to like masterclass right away without any in between. It was almost too hard to digest the information I was taking in that first like year. I almost was like, they say, drinking from a fire hose. That's what it felt like with the information. I was like it would be so interesting to look over Jim Lee's shoulder and see how quickly a page would come together, because it helped because it demystified it a bit. I had it on such a plateau that I would take forever to draw my pages because I wanted them to look so perfect. And watching how he sort of do it and kind of like he kind of like took the curtain away in a good way, where it kind of like I could see, oh, that makes sense how it all comes together, and he doesn't actually fuss over it as much as I would have thought he did. And it was just very interesting to sort of see that come together. And I remember going over to like Mark Silvestri, he'd always pin up all of his pages on a big bulletin board so you could see the issue coming together with the real boards on it was so cool. And again, it was I remember going even to like make my Xeroxes, and there would still be like, think about this. Image Comics was still pretty new. Like, I think he had just finished Wildcats, maybe number 3 when I got there.
Yeah.
So like by the Xerox, so by the Xerox machine in the studio, there was a pile of Xeroxes. And if you flip down far enough, there were Xeroxes of X-Men pages that were just still there from like a year before. So I was like Xeroxing the X-Men pages just to sort of like have something to study from and sort of see it in its real size. So it was a pretty magical time. I mean, I feel tremendously lucky. I mean, as lucky as I felt winning that Nintendo contest, that was way luckier.
You have to mention that again, didn't you?
Yeah. So. You know the old saying about to get better at tennis, you play with better tennis players, and so it's sort of like that. You know, I mean, you were thrown into this amazing arena of
that's always a wild thing too, when you've been told your whole life you're the best artist in the room, and then you suddenly get into a room where you are absolutely the lowest on the totem pole, and you have to go like, okay, I've got to like fight my way back up again. You know, it's like kind of like you know, but it's good. It was I love that period of time. I mean, I definitely felt insecure, like I was trying to learn on the job. You know, that first few years was just like me trying to just like, I had comic books spread out all over my desk because I was trying to like figure like, how do you draw rocks, or I gotta draw a tech scene. I remember Art Adams did a good one. How did he do it? Like you have to kind of go back and kind of like learn on the job, and some of it's, you know, a little bit of borrowing stuff. You're trying not to like outright steal things, but you're trying to get that language of comic books down, because as much as I thought I knew, I realized there's so much I had to learn on the job. So that's why the style was just changing so much. You look at Gen 13 number 1 and then Gen 13 number 5, it's almost like two different people drew it, because I was just constantly trying to refine what I was doing. And then even after that, I remember at some point like really forcing myself to relearn the basics, because I was kind of getting it was actually I can't remember. I'm trying to think of who gave me an art critique. But I remember like basically being told, you know, you're kind of cheating. You're jumping to the exaggeration before you've learned the proper basics. I was already trying to be Art Adams and trying to be Jim Lee without realizing I didn't have enough of a structure there. So I was jumping to the exaggerations, and my exaggerations kind of looked like I was exaggerating their exaggerations. So everything kind of looked extra rubbery. So going back and sort of grounding my art a little bit better helped a lot too. And thank God I did that before I got to Danger Girl, because then I kind of felt like I could go back to exaggerating in a way that was a little bit more grounded, and that helped a lot.
I remember the change in the art. I remember the eyes. Like it seems like you were getting comfortable with your style, and I think that's what was amazing about that time in comics with Image.
Yeah.
With all the young blood that was there, no pun intended. I'm talking about like you know, the young generation. Like that's what they were doing. Right? They were starting these new studios, and they were bringing in new young people like yourself, and I mean, and others. I mean, like Brett Booth and all those guys that were there. It's just
we were super competitive. We were very competitive with each other we were friendly, but we were also like super competitive with each other in the studio. We were super competitive with Rob's guys. We were because it almost seemed like there was Rob's camp and there was our camp, and we were kind of like like we would each sort of pick a different, like I think Dan Frag and I picked each other because we both loved Art Adams, so we were like, who's gonna be the better Art Adams like next generation, or I don't know, it's so stupid, but you know, competition breeds like you know, you really try to bring your best to the table and stuff like that, and I think for the most part it was done in good spirit and stuff like that, you know. And then at some point Mark, after he broke away and did his own studio in Santa Monica, you know, he brought in Mike Turner, and Mike Turner and I were kind of like, you know, kind of probably, I'm sure in some ways competitive too, because we both kind of had we're trying to carve out the same sort of corner with the sort of the similar age and trying to do like the hot girl thing, or whatever you want to call it, which was always came natural to me because I thought I was going to be an animator before I was into comic books. I mean, even when I won the Nintendo contest, which was very comic book influenced, I did comic book type illustrations for like a fake Nintendo booklet. That was what the contest contents were. I was still thinking at that time I was more likely to go into animation. And that was also that Disney animation renaissance that was happening at that time, where The Little Mermaid had come out, Roger Rabbit had come out, and I really loved, I really liked Jessica Rabbit and the way The Little Mermaid was drawn. So when you see a lot of what's in Gen 13, it's a lot of that. Like it's a lot of me bringing animation into the comic book stuff. That's why I was really pushing the expressions a lot, like trying to really play with their emotions. I mean, you have to remember that was the time period where everybody was gritting their teeth and had the cross hatching and everything like that. And I was trying to do something where I was inching the eyes a little bit bigger, and I was doing these bigger expressions. I mean, Fairchild in some ways has some Jessica Rabbit in her. She has some like Little Mermaid in her. So that I think that was a good secret sauce that I threw into my stuff that I think allowed me to break away from the look that a lot of other people were doing at the time. So I think that helped a lot, but that just came very natural to me that I wanted to go that direction.
And how did the start of Danger Girl happen? When did you decide? By the way, I never thought like those gimmicky covers in the 90s. I'm like, I'm not gonna buy 13 freaking covers. Nice try, Ghibli. I did. I bought every single one of those.
I remember some of the talent he was pulling in for those. I was like, wait, what? You got Michael Golden doing one? You got
I wanted the Jason Pearson Janet Jackson cover. The Jason Pearson Jackson cover was
that's the one. The one
to this day, that's the one that people still bring up.
Although you know, actually, hang on, let me ask you a quick question, because I'm just curious, and I don't know the answer to this. Was the do-it-yourself cover the first blank cover, the first sketch cover?
You're talking to me?
Yeah, well, either one.
I mean, I have yet to have it proven that it's not. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's the first time I ever saw that. Now, technically, it wasn't on sketch paper, because now when they do those, they have a special board they put it on. So that
it gets refined.
But yeah, we were starting to run out of ideas. We wanted to do 13 for obvious reasons, and we started. I think we're up to like 10, and we're starting to like run out of ideas. And I can't remember whose idea it was. It was like I don't remember. It might have been Jim's, but we did agree that it'd be so fun to have just a blank one with the again how our boards look with the guidelines with the blue.
Yeah.
And I think I drew the little grunge with like the painter hat, the artist hat, and the little like color plate, whatever it is. And that's I think the only piece of art that's on there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's technically the first. You
started that movement.
Yeah, it's wild. But yeah, I'm with you. I remember too when Jim said he was going like, we're going to do 13 covers. I remember thinking, how's that technically possible? Like, isn't a printer going to get confused? Isn't there going to be like a bunch of problems? Now it's just standard. Every book now from Marvel.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's like, so clearly that printer solved that issue, I guess. But I remember thinking like, that's too complicated. You can't do that many covers. They're gonna get confused. Like, I don't know. I was really concerned about the technical part of it for some reason. But you were asking about
Danger Girl. Yeah. How did you go from Gen 13 and then Danger Girl, kind of doing your own thing?
Yeah. I was starting to. Gen 13 was fun, but I could tell we were starting to run out of ideas for Gen 13. I mean, I felt Gen 13 could keep going, but I felt like I was losing a little bit of the reins on that. I was involved with telling the stories in the early issues, and I really liked that. In fact, actually, they even retroactively made me a co-creator on Gen 13 because once the trade paperback came out, both Jim and Brandon had kind of like to their my appreciation, I guess, acknowledged that I had created a lot of the personalities of the characters and had interjected quite a lot of the story elements. So I became like a third co-creator on it. And but by the time I was like kind of like we're getting those later issues, I just kind of felt the story was kind of going in ways that I just wasn't thrilled about. I remember we did a crossover. It was called I wanted to say Inferno, but that's X-Men. It was
Fire from Heaven.
Fire from Heaven. I think that does ring a bell. I think that might have been it. And we had to like veer off our storylines to kind of interject all that stuff. I remember those issues were just painful to draw because I wasn't following the story. I didn't really like in the other books. I mean, I of course follow it if I'm given a script, but that was like one of the rare times where I had to like follow a script to keep it like with the and the tone felt totally different in those issues. And I remember at the time thinking like, I don't know, like I always dreamed of doing crossovers because I always thought it was cool when X-Men did it. But now I'm like, oh, now that I'm actually doing it, this is not fun. I don't like this. And I started at that point daydreaming about, well, what would my comic be if I was to draw my own comic? And at that point, it just started to gel that like, oh, well, what are the things I really like? And they weren't really superheroes. I started realizing all my favorite things when I was drawing and kind of following things when I was younger were movies. Like I always loved watching the ABC Sunday night movie, which are always the James Bond movies. Like I watched all the James Bond movies on ABC Sunday night at the movies, or whatever it was. And I really had that language in my mind. I loved my absolute favorite movies, probably still to this day, were the Indiana Jones movies. So I loved that aspect of it. And bear in mind, at this point, Tomb Raider hadn't come out yet. So like that wasn't like a thing. Like it came out right around the time that the Danger Girl came out with the idea of a female like adventurer in that sort of sense. So so this seemed like something kind of fun and something I hadn't really seen. And I think at the time too, it's funny, there was like, I think the Spice Girls were happening. And I remember thinking like they did a video where like they're all like spies in the video. And I remember just thinking like, God, what a cool visual that is to have a team of girl spies. Like that's so fun. I mean, they're just doing it as a video, but I was like, that would be such a cool idea. And so everything just kind of came together. And I just started thinking like, this is I think what I want to do. And I had a friend of mine, Andy Hartnell, who I'd only recently met. I met through an editor that worked for us, the editor that was on Gen 13, Sarah Becker. She said, man, my friend Andy, you two are like almost exactly the same. You like all the same stuff and everything like that. And when I finally met him, we loved hanging out and talking movies and stuff like that. So we just started spitballing this idea for Danger Girl and where we could sort of take it. And it just kind of came together almost without any real effort. It was almost crazy how the ideas I think I think it's almost why they often say like when a musician or a band has a really great debut album or something like that, and then sometimes they have a tough time following it up. I think it's your entire lifetime of influences that all just hit at one particular moment where you sort of like, you put it back out, all your life's influences. And that's kind of what Danger Girl was. It was like all my favorite things because I liked being known for drawing the female characters. So that was already kind of baked in. Mm-hmm. And it was just a real natural fit. And that book was, other than just the time I wanted to put in to make sure that everything was meticulously detailed and thought through, it was very effortless, the idea aspect of it. It was just probably the most effortless I ever came to like laying out a page and just putting my ideas out on paper.
That was originally published by Image, and then later on, I think, was it IDW that?
No, so it was originally Image through an imprint that Jim created for myself, Joe Madureira, and
Cliffhanger, right? I think that's what it's called.
What's that? Yeah, Cliffhanger. Yeah, so Cliffhanger, and Mike Turner was almost going to be part of it as well. It was going to be four of us, but he ended up getting wooed away to stick with Mark. But yeah, so that was a label, but it was still through Image Comics and so it was Image, WildStorm, Cliffhanger, but all under the same thing. And but midway through the run, Jim sold WildStorm to DC. So the later issues had a DC logo on it. I think it still had Cliffhanger, but it was DC Cliffhanger at that point. So yeah.
So what I want to do now is take a trip down memory lane for you. You and Scott can tell me a little bit. We're going to be looking at some of the inside of what this artist edition is in store for you people. Looking at Danger Girl first, and then we'll look at Wildsiders. But
and Omar, can I just interject one thing?
Yeah, of course.
For anybody who's watching this who is not isn't aware of what an artist edition is, it's not a traditional comic book. It's an art book. I like to say it's an art book disguised as a comic book. It is scanning the original art, the actual original art boards that Jeff drew in this case, at high resolution in color. Obviously, the pages are in black and white, but because they're scanned in color, you can see all the little nuances. You can see the whiteout. You can see the blue. You can see the pencils. Sometimes you can see the gradients in the ink, all this stuff. And they're printed at the same size they were drawn. So this book is actually, both of these books are actually 12 by 17 inches. So
yeah, like if you guys, because we've noticed that even on the launch, and it's doing very well, and I'm so appreciative of that. But if we were noticing, I'm still on, right?
Yeah. I saw you had some books. I saw you had books, and I was like, oh,
okay, yeah. So this would be for people who might not be aware of what an artist edition is. This is what a comic book would look like, and this would be like if we do like a nice deluxe collection. You might get something like this where you've got a nice thick book. Artist editions are like huge. They're like, oh, yeah. This is how big the book will be. I mean, and that's because the original art is drawn like twice up. So these books are gigantic, and we have two of them like in a slipcase in this Kickstarter. So in case people want a visual out there, because I think some of my audience might, because sometimes artist editions skew maybe a little bit more Silver Age sometimes and that kind of thing, and it's only starting, I think, to creep into the 90s crowd, I think, a little bit more. And I think it's just important that people understand this isn't going to be this size. It's going to be, they're big. So it's really like looking through a portfolio of the original art. And it's shocking how well it recreates that feeling of looking at a portfolio of somebody's original art. It really is very similar. So what Scott's created with these artist editions is really quite special. And again, it's not really a black and white book. If you see even on the scan here, if you look up in the corner, there's the Image logo and the blue line is blue line. It's almost got like it's picking up the cream color of the paper. You'll see pencil strokes that maybe weren't fully erased. Sometimes you'll see notes I leave for the colorist and other little notes that just were meant for production, and they're all left in there. So you're really getting like a real behind the scenes experience of what it's like to sort of like see these pages as they were on my desk, or when Alex Garner was inking them. You'll see even sometimes the brush strokes. You can see sometimes the blacks aren't fully solid when you look at the original art. There's strokes of them, or sometimes you'll see even slight variations in the ink color because different pens are being used. And so it's really meant for the real art aficionados who really love diving into those sorts of details. It's definitely for that. You're not going to see word balloons and stuff like that because these weren't done in the era where word balloons were stuck on rubber cement.
Actually, Omar, could you go back to the last spread, Omar?
Absolutely.
And you can actually, if you look in the middle here, so this was page 12 and 13, and you see up on the top it has the title, it has the name of Campbell, and then on the right Alex Garner. But if you look but in that empty space between the eyes or underneath the eyes, you'll see that J. Scott actually penciled in the logo, the Danger Girl logo.
And that was because I needed to know how it was going to interact with the smoke. The smoke was going to wrap around the logo like the opening of a James Bond movie and all this other stuff. So I needed to have it roughed out, but I also didn't want to draw the logo. They put that in digitally, but I needed to know the space it was going to occupy. So again, there's an example of like, you can see it in the blue line right there, that you can see how it was roughed out. So yeah, that's another one of those like little kind of fun things where you'll just, and there's stuff like that throughout all these pages. You're going to see just really cool, like how it looked raw. It's almost like seeing a movie before the special effects are added in or something like that in some ways. But yeah, it's really fun to look at these. And I've become a big collector of these books that Scott's done. I mean, I have quite a few of them myself, and they're just gorgeous to look at.
I'm gonna. I'm sorry. Just really quick, I wanted to add something to follow up on what Scott said. And
yeah.
Not only has he meticulously scanned these at the highest possible resolution, but the paper stock that Scott chose for these artist editions, it's perfect. Like,
Mhm.
just, I mean, let's face it, we live in an age where original art, especially from a page like this, you know, that's super expensive. And getting it in a big book with other pages, it's just an amazing treat to have it in a big, or as close to the original as you can possibly have it.
For sure, for sure. And it's funny too, I Omar, because I kind of, being a collector of these books, thought, oh, what a dummy. I wish I had saved all my Danger Girl pages, because I'll never be able to do one of these books. This is the artwork's been scattered to the wind. I have a handful of pages myself, but oh well, that ship has sailed. But when I ran into a longtime collector, I hadn't seen him in years, a friend of mine named Greg. I remembered he had collected quite a few of the pages back in the day, and I just happened to run into him the previous year at Comic-Con. And we were just catching up and talking about life and kids and stuff like that. And I just said, by chance, I said, hey, by the way, you had a ton of Danger Girl pages. Do you happen to still have some of those? And he goes, oh, I have them all. And I was like, are you joking? And I said, how many do you have? And he explained that he had, you know, he didn't remember the exact number, but he said like, oh, I think I had like 60 or 70 probably. And I knew that I had some. And like, I think I had about like maybe as many as 20, maybe a little bit more. And also some scans of my later ones since then in full color. And so when Scott Dunbier mentioned this book, I said, you know, there might be enough pages to get the ball rolling and at least start the hunt for more, because that's the thing. It's like, you have to scan these over again. It's not like, even though we can reprint Danger Girl anytime, we don't have this kind of scan. So you have to, much like the adventurers in the book, you have to chase down and find these like artifacts and then scan them. And now thankfully I had a lot of like the A+ pages. I had the covers, I had some of the spreads. I think this page right here, which is Get Out of the Water, was one of mine. So I saved some Grail pieces from the series, so we had a good anchor there. And Greg had quite a few really great ones as well. Like, for instance, we have the entire 8-page preview story intact with the cover, so that's a nice sequence. We have all in order. There will be holes in this. This isn't the complete Danger Girl series. I would probably be near impossible to find every original at this point, but we have a lot of really great ones. And I think Scott Williams might have still had an original. Sandra Hope had an original, and she had done some inks on the book as well. So it's been quite a feat. And by the way, too, if you guys are watching this, it's still not too late. If you have an interior page from Danger Girl that I drew and you want to include in the book, please contact us and let us know. I try to read my messages as much as possible, but if you put it in a thread of any of these Kickstarter launch threads, whether it's on Instagram or on Facebook or right here, please let us know, because we're still looking to see if we can sneak some additional pages in before this goes to press. So
absolutely. And let me just say that if you do have any pages, you know, whether it's pages from the original series or later covers or sketches, you know, like this, like layout pages like this, we're also putting in the book. But if you have anything, you can actually email me at scans@act4publishing.com. That's scans@act and then the number 4 publishing.com, and that'll come right to me. And you can send me your scans. They need to be of a certain quality. You know, just a Xerox type thing will not do it. It has to be something where you can actually see the art. And you'll be thanked in the book, and potentially you might get a free copy.
Thank you, Josh. I was going to put it as a banner. I really appreciate it. By the way, the chat is full of so many people.
I know. I keep trying to read that. I was just seeing the one because is that the one with the ironclad guarantee? That was the one with the ironclad guarantee. We might have broke that guarantee, but at the time we really believed it.
You know, I didn't realize there were all those chats in there. All right.
I know. I've been trying to read them, but it's
yeah. I was letting the conversation flow, and then I was going to get some questions from the chat, because I know that you have a lot of fans out there. Can you tell me a little bit about this? Like, who ends up with this, for example? Because this is just is this the layout for your pages, right?
Yeah. So that's that one just happened to be one I held on to, probably because I had the preview story intact, so I kind of held on to the breakdowns, but. That's what we sometimes you call them layouts, sometimes I call them breakdowns, but they're basically, it's the same board I would draw the final page on, but what I'll do is I'll break it into 4s. So you'll get So every little breakdown is the page, but like 1/4 the size. So that way I can kind of like work out like a lot of the problems. So it's just a technique I've done. It's not typical. Jim Lee doesn't do this. Jim goes straight to the board. But I think Art Adams does it this way, where you kind of like, and I didn't even know he did it this way. Weirdly enough, I just didn't feel confident back then to jump right into the page without sort of figuring some things out in advance. And sometimes I get a little carried away. In this case, you can see some things are way overdrawn, but I think I was so excited about this being a new book. I just really wanted to get it all figured out. And there's a lot of vehicles in Danger Girl. So I think in some cases I had toys of the Jeep and the helicopter to try to get the perspective by holding it in my hand. So yeah, this is what it would look like. And then what I would do is I would take each one of these, and at that point I had my own Xerox machine at my house, and I would put it on and then do 200%, and it would put out 11 by 17 blow up of it, and that's what I would use to light box my actual page before going to full finished pencils.
Just out of curiosity,
yeah,
how long does something like that? I don't even know if you remember. How long would something like that take?
Oh, I probably spent a couple days figuring out those 4 pages for sure. And I don't do these to this degree anymore, because this really was kind of a waste of time. I shouldn't be doing this much of it. And nowadays, if I do it, I draw it actually quite small, because I don't want to overcommit to that size. It's like more like 1 inch by like 2 by 3 inches now if I do a cover or page layout. But back then, I think I was still using this technique because it was just a great way to keep the page clean, because I didn't want to over erase trying to figure out this stuff. And also too, as an artist, it's a lot less intimidating when you're trying to fill up a page this big than a page this big. And when I draw small, the figures and everything just feel very tight, and I can figure out the anatomy and the perspective much easier, So it was a technique that worked really well at the time. And I think there might be a few of these in the book, right, Scott? Do we know how many we were including of these, or?
Right now I think we have 6 or 7 pages like this.
There you go, and they're fun to look at. They are neat to get you that sort of. And again, the book is going to have, like I said, some sketchbook material, variant covers, anything that we can get our hands on that's an original scan with this technique.
What about commission pieces? Do you all ever include any of that?
I think if it's a more deluxe commission, I did have a gentleman actually reach out to me just today, actually, and he was excited to include his piece. But it was a remark on a comic book, and those tend to be. While I'm always excited when somebody can have that in their collection, because I do, and we're even offering a similar type of remark with a tier on this Kickstarter. That's tends to be a little bit more of a. Not the type of piece we're looking for. If there's a commission, it has to be a more deluxe commission, probably like a full figure to sort of probably include in the book. Otherwise, half the book would just be remarks of profiles, and I don't think that would be as nearly engaging for the audience as maybe it seems like it should be.
This is a cool thing here. This is actually
I love this piece.
Sketchbook.
Yeah, that was done a little bit more recently than the original run of Danger Girl. That was when we did a deluxe version of the Danger Girl sketchbook, and I felt it needed an updated cover. So that was a more recent in the sense of like where we are in time compared to when Danger Girl came out. It's probably still about 10 years old.
Man, it's gorgeous. Yeah, you're right. It is 2015. Right.
Oh, there you go.
There's one other thing that's cool that's in the book. If you remember the sketchbook, on the bottom, there were little figures of Abby, a flip book kind of thing. And those are reproduced in the book also. They're small, so they'll be like, several to a page rather than single images.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was definitely done for the Danger Girl sketchbook. That was more in that era. And I was probably really pushing. That character looks a little bit like extra curvaceous compared to probably maybe how I would draw it now, but it's fun to look back at the stuff. And that was a piece I was very, at the time, ambitious to try. I don't think I've done that level of pencil shading maybe since then.
See, that's what I love. I love your pencil shadings. I don't know. It's just something extra special about that. Nothing wrong with the finished inks or anything. I think this is absolutely gorgeous.
By the way, thank you for the really nice comment, Rebellious Monkey. I very much appreciate your comment.
Yeah, I promise I'm going to get to the
I know. I want to make sure
good questions, but I wanted to at least go through Danger Girl first and then come back.
Of course.
Scott, can you tell me about this piece right here?
Yeah, this is actually a 3-part cover. It's Shoot, J. Scott, I can't remember which book it was.
I was gonna say it's either Revolver or there's the 2R series we did. It was Revolver.
It's Renegade. It's Renegade.
Renegade, yeah. I always get those two mixed up. So
yeah, but this is actually on the left is the cover to number 2, and then the middle is 3, and the right hand side is 4. And so that's a triptych that'll be inside the book. It'll be a fold out.
And Omar, this would have been a cover for when we had other artists doing the stories that Andy continued for Danger Girl when I was doing other things. but we'll still have pieces from this era that are my pieces that I did for the different covers for the other Danger Girl series and pinups and stuff like that. So this would be kind of considered maybe one of the middle period of Danger Girl, like when we were doing those miniseries.
So I know today's the first day, and it's been really successful. But I just wanted to remind people that I did leave the link in the description of the video and also in the comments. Josh is putting them up. These things, how do I word this? There's a lot of these things that are selling out that I'm like, wow, that was because you mentioned Remark. I'm like, oh, cool. Oh, they're gone.
Yeah, somebody said they're gone in 6 minutes. I guess it went live at 6 a.m.
Wow.
Somebody said it went live at 6 a.m., which I was like, well, I don't know if I'm getting up at 6 a.m., but I was very happy. I was very happy to see that some people who are very early birds got their remarks, which, I would expect those to go the quickest because I do follow a lot of Kickstarters, and I know anytime you have anything that's original art involved, that those tend to go fast. But I'm very appreciative that people wanted those, and I'm looking forward to drawing them for them.
Will something like this, Scott, be a fold out, or is this something like that? It is two pages.
This will be a fold out.
Nice. Man, I love when you do that.
Yeah, and I think there's a few opportunities in this book for fold outs.
Oh my gosh, you got the G.I. Joe stuff in here. Yes.
We're very grateful that Hasbro allowed us to include the Danger Girl G.I. Joe pieces, which we have quite a few actually.
Right, and this, again, this is a triptych. It's 2, 3, and 4. Why do you do 2, 3, and 4 on your connecting covers? Why not 1, 2, and 3, or 3, 4, and 5? But this is, this is in the book, G.I. Joe and Danger Girl, and it'll also be a fold out.
You did a lot of the covers for the G.I. Joe classics when Image started. No, Marvel. Was it Marvel that first started reprinting them, and then it went over to Image for a while?
Yes. Well, I did some covers back when Devil's Due first did the whole 80s. When Devil's Due did the first 80s revival of, like, it kind of started the wave of, like, I think it preceded even Transformers coming back and everything like that. I did the covers for the first, I think, 4 or 5 of those. And then Marvel did do some trade paperbacks reprinting their run. And I think I did the first 6 trade paperback covers for that, which were a lot of fun. G.I. Joe. And that really lent itself to what I was doing at the time, because G.I. Joe, I very openly admit to G.I. Joe's tremendous influence on Danger Girl. Maybe in some ways even more so than even the ones I mentioned before with Indiana Jones and James Bond, because G.I. Joe had a tone and a style. I always thought the 80s G.I. Joe had just the right sprinkling of, like, superhero spandex and stuff in there. Like, it was just, like, colorful enough and just sort of like outrageous enough with the sort of the premises that it felt kind of like Super Friends but with military, and they definitely had a big influence. So having, and also the legitimacy of just, like, Danger Girl crossing over with G.I. Joe, I felt it in some ways, the idea that they would share a universe is kind of cool to me. Like, it's a very much the high school kid in me who would race home to watch the G.I. Joe miniseries that would be on after school. I kind of have to pinch myself that actually happened, that those characters got to interact like that. It's super cool.
I love that you threw Serana in there.
Yeah, no, you gotta.
Yeah, all the other ones make sense, right? Like, but then nobody shows that much love to Serana. That's awesome.
You gotta do it.
Let's. Yeah, man, this book is gonna be gorgeous.
More full.
Is this another one of your 1, 2, and 3? Is that what it is, Scott?
No, this was one cover.
Yeah, this was one cover for issue 7, where it was a gatefold that so the Abby would have been the cover, Deuce and Valerie would have been on the back cover, and then Sydney and Johnny Barracuda would have been on the inside flap that you would fold out, and then it would be you'd get the full gatefold, much like the Jim's X-Men one at the time. I remember with Wolverine and the X-Men fanned out. I remember.
Oh yeah,
that was kind of like I had that in mind. I was like, I can't do it as good as that, but I'm going to shoot for the moon with this.
And this really, to me, is the most iconic Danger Girl piece. You know, it's big and beautiful, and it's got all the characters, and it's epic.
Yeah, that was definitely what we were going for. And also too, it was fun to in that initial miniseries with a double-sized issue with a fold-out cover. It just sort of seemed like, I mean, we were already late at the time. We were starting to get behind schedule like midway through, but to me, it's like I still wanted to end the series with this just giant, fat, heavy comic book, and that we definitely did it with this one.
It's 50 pages.
Yeah. Oh, more than double. There you go.
And I believe that's the last one from Danger Girl. Before we show Wildsiders, and then of course the slipcase designs, which look amazing, by the way, wanted to first get this just a couple of the questions here.
Yeah, please.
Lots of love for Danger.
I appreciate everybody chiming in. A lot of these are great questions.
Let me make sure we go back here, and I'll take just a couple of them. And let's see here. This is from Patel. He's asking, what is the most iconic comic book of all time to you?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm going to be biased with myself here. I mean, my favorite is X-Men Annual number 10 because it's the first comic book Art Adams drew. So that's my most iconic one. I don't know if that's like how the industry sees it, but that's an iconic one for me. How about you, Scott? I'm sure you've got a few in mind.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you know, there are too many to really say, but I guess, you know, one of my favorites when I was a couple that were my favorites when I was a kid, you know, the first issue of Commandy by Jack Kirby, because that was just crazy. You know, it was like Planet of the Apes with better, you know, with more Hannibals. And issue number 7 of Bernie Wrightson's Swamp Thing, where Swamp Thing fights Batman, because that just made my head explode as a kid.
I also do remember going to the comic store 4 weeks in a row to get all 4 covers of Jim Lee's X-Men number 1. I do remember that. And then of course the finale where it was all connected anyway, kind of. And I think time has proven that that's iconic because of the phenomenon of X-Men 97, the show and stuff like that. It's I mean, in many ways, I think currently the X-Men comic book characters have all gone back to that look. It kind of just shows that the audience still loves that era. And it was kind of fun I like that because that was an era I was actually around for. I do remember going to the comic book store, like anticipating that book coming out, and then it came out, and it was just like there was a lot of comic books were very cool and at their like peak of like pop culture influence right then. I remember that being really cool.
That leads to something that was said, and I've seen it a couple times show up. I haven't seen it myself, but apparently issue 2 of Rogue Savage Land, because that is the Jim Lee era, to me is the greatest depiction of the character. She is so strikingly beautiful in that, but still has a hint of badass, powerful woman to her.
I appreciate that, Ryan. That's very kind of you. I especially appreciate that because even though I'm very fortunate to have such amazing colors that I love working with, that was one of the covers where I attempted to color myself. So so I spent time during Christmas break or Christmas break, not school, but like during around the Christmas time where things were a little slower, I actually did color that one myself, which is something I'd like to try to do more and more when I get a chance. So I'm glad that made that sort of impact. And also, you know, it's from that era we were just talking about. To me, Savage Land, Rogue, I was going to do a video about this but I unfortunately didn't get around to doing it when I did these covers because to me, Savage Land Rogue is one of those iconic costume designs that made such an impact on me. I kind of put it right up there with like Princess Leia and the Jabba slave outfit. like to me, I know it's probably weird, it's guy talk, but it's like
not at all.
It's well, you know, being a girly artist or a pinup artist, to me, there's certain iconic outfits that to me were just defining. And there's like a Mount Rushmore of like iconic like bikinis. That one's right up there with
I'm curious who else would make it on that list.
I know. I'm gonna have to release my full list at some point, but those two would definitely be up there.
The Mount Rushmore. This gentleman has been asking, and I don't know, is there a way to contact you to get you on his show. And I don't know, do you have like a email address people can reach you at, or do you just
you can always reach I have info@jscottcampbell.com where we field all inquiries and stuff like that. I will say I am very selective, not for any particular reason, but I do get asked so often. I think I have to be selective because I either have to be promoting something or something has to be happening, because otherwise I just there's just too many people, and I'm very flattered that some people want me to be on a podcast. I just think it's I'm very selective with my time, so it's like I think I don't say yes to many. So you're in rarefied air there, Omar. But yeah, it's like I tend not to agree to too many, just because I tend to I'm just particular about my time, and I'm just always trying to get work done.
Well, I remember when I was a kid and I went to a convention, and the reason I drove to this convention, so I guess I was 17 and 18 or 18. It was because Mark Bagley was making an appearance, and Mark Bagley never appeared at conventions.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I'm like, why don't you come to conventions, man? Like, I always, at that time, I would always see John Byrne and George Perez and all these other wonderful creators. And he was like, man, if I come to these conventions, who's going to draw these books? I draw 2 books a month.
No, I respect that. No, I respect that too. And I'm not it's funny. I am doing the New York Comic Con coming up. So if you guys are in New York, I haven't done that one, I think, in the last 6 years. So it's, I'm making an effort to do that one, and I mostly do San Diego, but I weirdly skipped it this year. So that was the first time I've skipped it in 20 years. But I'm very selective for those reasons too, because I'm not a big commission guy. I don't like to draw commissions, and that's so I don't like to set up a booth and do commissions and that kind of thing. And while I always enjoy meeting the fans, and they're always so enthusiastic and lovely, it's just to people have to understand these conventions, like it's not always just a weekend. You have to sometimes carve out a few days to leave, and they always start on a Thursday or something like that. Yeah. And then you come back, and then you sometimes get con crud, and then you're sick for a few days. It's such a block of time. And I did do that circuit for a while. In fact, I got really good at having my booth and merch and everything like that, and it was a fun period. But it's funny. It's for the same reason that I pulled back doing commissions. I realize at a certain point, you only have so many drawings in you in your lifetime. And I want to draw as much as I can that can be published and be dispersed as widely as possible. And I want to stay productive. I mean, Alex Ross, I think he doesn't do any shows. There's a reason that guy's super productive and has so many pieces out there. But I generally think you only get so many It's when you're younger, you think you're going to draw forever. You think you're going to like, oh my God, I can do every book I ever want. I'll draw a Batman book and I'll draw a Spider-Man book. But then you get to be older and you're like, okay, I'm getting up there in age. Like, how many books can I do? How many covers can I do? You start to be a little selective, because you go on like, okay, maybe my eyes might go in 5 years, or maybe my handle starts shaking. You have to think about these things. So to me, every drawing is precious, and I have to really select what I'm going to draw very carefully. And shows are like that too, and how you divide up your time. For me, I'm thinking more legacy now, and what are the things I'm going to do the next 5 or 10 years that are going to have the most impact and the most meaning. And I'm you start thinking about that stuff when your hair turns this color.
This is a compliment. Your work from Kenny, your work has always been a favorite of mine. Bought all the original Danger Girl issues and had to hunt down the Absolute editions when I got back into the hobby 5 or 6 years ago. Those Absolute editions, by the way, even 5 or 6 years ago, were freaking outrageous. Because they're so out of print, and they've never been reprinted. And at the time, I know that comment meant a lot.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why we reprinted we talked about the reprint of the or the special edition we did of the Danger Girl sketchbook, because the Danger Girl sketchbook was oversized and had its own hardcover in that Absolute edition, which we were really proud of. But yeah, that's the thing about those Absolutes, man. Just like this book here on the Kickstarter, you'll be chasing it down in 10 years, guys. Get it now while it's affordable.
It's a lot harder to reprint these artist editions too.
It is. I don't know if you do you reprint, Scott, very often of the older ones, or are they what do you? I don't even know.
Occasionally I have one that's coming out in January or February. It's Wally Wood's EC Stories, but I don't want to just do a reprint of the original book. So this is the expanded edition, the first book that came out like 15 years ago and has been out of print for a decade. It had 18 stories. The new artist edition has 29 stories. It's insane.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
That's
crazy.
That's a good reason to
Scott,
reprint.
Scott's figured out us nerds, man. You throw a couple of extra things in there, I will rebuy it over and over.
Oh my god, yeah.
I make books that I want.
That's right. That's right. Let me get this one here. Is Batman 1. The only person that would know this might be Scott. Is Batman the 1 cover original art available to purchase?
I appreciate that, Patel. I think it was sold. I think. But again, anybody who's interested in original art, go to my website, jscottcampbell.com. There is an original art section. And also, if there's anything that's questionable or if it's not, you don't see it on there, you can always write info@jscottcampbell.com. Sometimes it takes a few days for them to get back. We're not Amazon, so it takes a couple days sometimes for people to respond. But we always appreciate the interest. I think that one might have sold, only because I recall that conversation coming up recently. But yeah, and interesting too. He has the bat ears on the original one because he's cropped on the other one.
Oh,
people weren't thrilled with me that I cropped it. I thought it was gonna be cool. Like, oh, like that's like, look, I cropped Batman's ears. Like, you never see that. But people were like really upset about it. But I did actually draw the ears on the original just because I thought people would want it on the original. So.
And then I'll have one more and we can look at Wildsiders. This is from Rebellious, who you were replying to a little bit earlier. Hey there, J. Scott Campbell. I'm a big fan of yours. I've got all your comics and a couple of art books. Plus, I'm also an inspiring artist. Thank you so much for inspiring me so much. Love you, Holmes.
Lots of love
for you, man.
Great. And keep up the art. Again, it's like the next generation. I'm always pushing for them to again. I like seeing all this new art from when you're on Instagram, and a lot of them are digital now, so they're they have so many tools that I didn't have when I was. That's why I'm trying to catch up by occasionally coloring my own work because I don't want to be left in the dust. But yeah, it's like it's neat to see all these artists and having this way of having their art discovered and seen now. And there's so much talent out there. It's crazy. It can be very humbling to go scrolling on Instagram and see all these artists and the ages that they're at and what they're doing at such a younger age. I'm going like, wow, it's the talent is scary.
That's that's full circle though, right? You were a kid once,
of course,
and you loved Arthur Adams, you loved Jim Lee, and then you became that guy, and now you're that guy for so many people.
That is tricky.
I know for a fact because I've interviewed a lot of those people that are huge right now, and they love, like, they always talk about you. Always.
That is trippy. That is trippy. I mean, I did an intro for David Nakayama's book. He was very kind and gave me a quote.
Yeah, he's one of the people I interview and brought.
Yeah, it's funny to have these working professionals now that will say really wonderful things like that to you and tell you that they look up to you. And I think that's only really kicked in the last maybe 10 years or so. And it threw me for a loop because I didn't realize I was at that point until it happened. And then you're like, wait, what? Like,
yeah,
I'm not old enough yet. That's like, yeah, right.
Nobody
so
ever bothers telling you, right?
Right. So it must be. It's kind of funny and nice to be at that point to hear things like that. And I always am very appreciative. But yeah, it's just shows you how fast time flies because in my mind, I'm not at that point yet. But I kind of have to acknowledge that maybe I am. So yeah, it's weird.
But it's a good place in your life to be.
Oh yeah, you'd rather be there than not. Right? Yeah, for sure. No, it's like, but it's also that feeling of like you want to say, well, I'm not done yet. Like,
well, yeah, no one's saying that, but I like being appreciated. Tell me more.
No,
So now we're looking at Wildsiders. So this is a really cool artist edition because there wasn't a lot of this stuff that was released. So tell me about this series.
Well, this is funny because this is something Scott approached me about. The unfortunate thing about this series was it didn't get finished. It got delayed, and I was meant to go back and finish it, but life happened and things kind of moved along. And at some point, it just kind of didn't get finished. And there was years that went by where I was like, well, nobody's really asking for this. Maybe this book didn't click. Maybe this idea was too strange or too unusual. I was very proud of it at the time, but I was asking a lot of the audience to buy into this concept. And so I kind of like, while I was trying to find the time to finish the series, it just kind of didn't happen. So, and then in recent years, well, not even that recent years, I'd say in the last like 10 or 15 years, people have been asking about Wildsiders. And while we've never reprinted it or finished the series, Scott said, "Hey, I really would like to make an artist edition book of this." He goes, "Do you have the art for this?" And I said, "Not only do I have the art for this, I have all of the art for this. Like,
you have every single page,
everything, because it was not a finished series, and at the time, the other thing too, Omar, that was a reason why I sold a lot of the artwork back with Danger Girl, with Gen 13, was I had an inker. And when you have an inker, you have to split up the artwork. You can't, I mean, I didn't have the funds to buy the pages that were deserving to Alex Garner that he worked on. Yeah. He deserved a third of everything because that's just, for some reason, the way it worked with inkers and pencilers. But so he got every third cover, and he got a third of every book. So right off the bat, when I finished a Danger Girl issue, right off the bat, I didn't have a complete book. So then it became a little easier for me to part with some pages myself and go, okay, well, I'll sell a few pages. I'll make some extra bucks here, and that kind of thing.
That makes sense.
So with Wildsiders, I was trying a totally different technique, which is, again, this will be really fun to have the two books in this collection, because you're going to see my artwork in a totally different way than the Danger Girl volume. Because in this book, I drew everything in pencil. So I got to keep all the originals because it's all mine. And we were trying a technique at the time called digital inks, which really was more of a thing where it was a technique that Brian Haberlin's studio was doing, where they would sort of play with the levels and the knobs on Photoshop selectively, and then kind of dial in the pencils to look dark when it was printed. So that way it gave a look of a line art, but it was pencils just turned into black and white line art. So I have all of these pages. The other thing that's kind of crazy about this book was all of their superpowers were holograms. So I would draw, there you go. So I would draw on a separate piece of paper on a light box, the hologram portion, and I would send it to my colorist in 2 layers. And that was the idea, was to create, so it would make it much easier for my colorist to create the special effect I had in mind, so that the characters' holograms would be translucent and you could see overlap.
So and, you would do this, and then with blue, I'm assuming you sketched that out here with blue.
So what we're doing with this book is, if you go back one, it was drawn in the regular pencil as well as just as the first one. But for this book, and the sake of people appreciating what was happening, we are compositing it for you, but I'm making the holograms in blue line as though I did.
Oh, okay.
Blue. And that's just to give you the idea. So otherwise it just kind of turned into a bit of a noisy mess. But this way you can kind of appreciate the two aspects. And actually in the book, there will be an intro page where there will be the two separated with a vellum.
It'll be this page.
Yes. And that will set it up so you'll understand what you're going to be seeing in the subsequent pages. Like, we're going to illustrate, and I have a whole intro where I explain my process for this book and why we did it that way. So it's kind of leads you in by the hand as to what you're seeing on the subsequent pages, because we can't do a translucent, or we can't do a overlay on every page. I mean, the book would probably be like $1,000 or something, but we can do it. But we can do it as an illustration to give you an idea of what you're going to be seeing, and then the rest of the pages, it's indicated with blue line what was happening on that book. So
that's gonna look awesome. I love when Scott adds those little extras in his artist edition.
Yeah, for
never miss a beat.
And this one is extras like galore, because he has my breakdowns, like my little thumbnails for the pages. He has the ones I showed you for Danger Girl, where it's the 4 and 4. We also have an entire half of issue 3 that unfortunately was not completed, but people will be able to see story pages from issue 3
as
in their
well
entirety. As well as the cover. Yeah. So that's kind of fun for people who are always wondering where the series is going to go. I guess it's only going to frustrate people too. Some people, they're a little bit frustrated to begin with, but
you'll just be.
Let me just point out that so J. Scott did all of the layouts on a separate sheet. He actually, on this book, he actually went in and digitally composited every single overlay into the actual original art. So when you see
I felt like I was probably the only one who could know where they go.
I see what you mean. I had
to assemble them again, so make sure they lined up correctly and then send them back to Scott. Say, okay, this overlay goes to this page, and this. Weirdly enough, my brain right back to what I did. I could tell right away. Oh, this one goes here. This one goes here. even though I hadn't looked at them in forever.
Some of them were so tiny. I was like, where the hell does this go? And he's like, oh, that's, page 4 from number 2.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird the things your brain remembers. But yeah, so I appreciate that Scott really wanted the world to see these because, again, it's fun that I had, again, the complete aspect of it. And again, while not the sensation that Danger Girl was, I think as a companion book, this is a lot of fun. And you see where my art was going, the evolution of it was going. I mean, in a lot of ways, some of the stuff I was drawing in Wildsiders kind of became the style that I took into my Marvel work when I started doing Marvel covers around that time. And the shape, language, and stuff was starting to change at this point when I was drawing these characters. Like, oh, here you go, Scott. You might want to explain this.
Well, okay, now I think the rest of the pages here, you'll notice the tan background. These are actually the finished pages as they will appear in the book. So what you're looking at here is actually going to be a double page spread. When you open it up, this will be 2 feet wide and 17 inches high. And this is from issue number 1, breakdowns that J. Scott did. It's kind of crazy to me, like he talked earlier about doing layouts and getting it worked out. But so if you look at this, you'll see he did the entire every page in each issue of Wildsiders as breakdowns. And then if you go to the next slide, Omar, you'll see these are the layouts. And again, this is a double page spread. We built the book specifically in spread so they all sort of matched, went with each other. So, and again, this will be 17 inches high and 24 inches wide when you open it up. And these are, various layouts.
Only you, Scott, could say that, and that's huge. Like when you're thinking about comic books, those are huge dimensions. But that gives you an idea how big and wonderful.
Again, this is the size of his book. So
but honestly, I think J. Scott gets a bad rap when people say that he's very, very slow, and because it may take a while sometimes for the work to come out, but this is the proof, and the proof's in the pudding. Is this
was a ridiculous level of pre-visualizing them, which probably has a little bit to say why I ran out of steam to finish it, which is unfortunate. But there was a crazy amount of prep work that went into this, and the previous pages, those breakdowns were like this just to make sure everything would work out page wise, and then I'd go into a more detailed version, and then the final version. But again, when you're dealing with, like, now that in this book there were no inks, it was even more crucial that the pencils were very clean. If I over erased, it would really affect the process of the digital inks, because you'd be giving them a muddy drawing to try to, you can't digital ink from muddy pencils. They have to be overly precise. And it was actually during this period where I started to come out the other side, where I was like, I should maybe just ink myself, which is what I do now, because to do such clean, crisp pencils, you're kind of going over your pencils a couple times anyway. So what I do is I do a little bit of a looser pencil and then just go to inks. But I think I didn't quite have the confidence yet to do that. So you got this era of me where I was doing these really overly precisely tight pencils.
Actually, Omar, don't move on this one yet. Sorry to interrupt, J. Scott.
No. Sure.
I just wanted to point out that J. Scott actually found this sketchbook, and you can see the spiral on it. And so we decided to scan it and show it as it actually is, same size in the book. And these are the first drawings that he did on Wildsiders. There are 7 pages from this sketchbook.
Yeah, they were like character studies. I was trying to play around with facial features. It was an interesting time, Omar, because I was kind of like one of my other really early influences is Mort Drucker from the Mad Magazine days.
Yeah.
And I always kind of pushed that influence away when I first was doing Gen 13 and Danger Girl, because although a little of it came in with Danger Girl with like the Deuce character, he had a little bit of Sean Connery in him and stuff like that, and I would kind of, and Scott Dunbier is a character in the book and Danger Girl, but with Wildsiders, I really allowed myself to have the Mort Drucker part come in way more than I'd ever had before, and that was to really give each of the teenage characters a very strong individual personality. So I was really doing a lot of character studies, studying different actors' faces and seeing what features I could sort of borrow and sort of integrate into the characters. So a lot of these early sketches are showing that process.
You know, I can see it in this character right
here.
Oh,
for sure. Yeah. To me, it's still like Art Adams and Mort Drucker are still to this day hardwired into my like just base level of drawing. I can default to either of those two so easily because their shape language was the earliest stuff I learned, and their rendering language. So it's funny how that stuff still just naturally comes out very, very easily for me.
And looking at,
and that now you're looking at like the actual pages from the book. So this gives you an idea of what the actual finished pages. And again, they never got finished past pencil. This is just the pencil work. And then these particular 2 pages, they didn't have the holograms, so the pages are just the gray tone.
Man, this looks great. When looking at stuff like this,
yeah,
do you ever miss it?
I did. When I was drawing this. When I was helping Scott put these pages together, I kind of fell back in love with this concept. I was like, oh, this was a fun concept. I mean, I at the time, I don't know. It was funny. There was a lot going on in my personal life that unfortunately was the main reason why it got derailed for a bit. And then I think I couldn't really gauge the audience reaction to this at the time. I wasn't sure if they were enjoying this or not. I was enjoying it, and Andy and I enjoyed doing the book, but at the time, I couldn't tell if it was working. Like, to me, this was my love letter to all my favorite 80s movies, like the John Hughes movies. And it was a little bit of mix, of course, of like, I mean, I was never really a Power Rangers guy. I kind of aged out from that. But the idea of like a super team with color coded powers and stuff, I really had a lot of fun thinking that this could be something with legs that maybe could be something a younger generation would enjoy. And if it ever did get turned into a show or a toy line or something like that. But it was a lot of fun, just like doing the personalities, and I really had fun with the interplay between the characters. It was a little bit circling back to my Gen 13 stuff, but trying to do Gen 13 better in the sense like I pulled back a little bit more on the TNA and tried to do more of like just the personality stuff and really try to show that I'd grown a lot with how I could sort of depict unique characters and stuff like that. So it was a fun experiment. I did look at these pages again, going like, "Oh wow, I liked where I was going with this. Why didn't I finish it up?" I don't know. It is something that still bothers me, but I'm glad at least people can see as a curiosity the artwork that went into this era, and I think this book displays it in a really fun way. You know,
I think
actually, Omar, would you mind going back to the previous spread for just a second?
Not at all.
I just wanted to point out something. Remember when J. Scott was talking about all the little tiny pieces of overlay and the ones that I'm like, I have no idea where these go. There's an example in that first panel on that first page.
I was about to ask about the blue, but
those are overlays
on their clothes. Yeah.
I mean, but how meticulous is this guy? That, it's just incredible.
Yeah, I was definitely. I don't know if I'd do this again. I think if I was to finish the series one day, like which I do sometimes float around the idea, like how wild would that be if I just suddenly dropped the last issues like all these years later. But if I did, I would find some sort of shortcut to those holograms, because in the end, I don't know if I was probably just out of my mind, just trying to do something. I think I thought I was the Jim Cameron of comic books, and I was breaking some crazy new ground or something. But really, in the end, I was probably just making too much work for myself.
Scott called you the Britney Spears of comics.
Yes. Yeah, that one raised an eyebrow.
You're taking it out of context.
Also true. Yeah, this looks awesome. I can't wait to see the book. Since you have every page of this, how big is this one going to be?
I was asking about that too. They're still similar size, the two volumes, right? They're kind of
like how many pages?
Yeah, well, the book itself is 168 pages, but there's also a vellum overlay that shows the earlier we were talking about the cover, the zero cover that had we showed the cover and also the overlay. That'll be so that'll have a vellum overlay all the way at the beginning. It was the first and second and third slide, and then right there. So that'll have a vellum overlay, and then if you move forward a little bit, you'll see there's two double page spreads that was a poster, and then you go back to that double page spread. That'll be a fold out. So I guess technically the book is 172 pages plus the
Oh, I always wonder how you count those as.
Well, you have to. They're in what? Is it paginations? How do you call it, Scott?
signatures.
Signatures. So you have to so every group of 8 pages. Is that what it is?
Actually, artist editions are so big, it's 4. So
okay. Yeah. So you got to find those spots to slide in those. You can't just put them anywhere. They have to mathematically fall in a way that they're between those signature.
The vellum overlay is between pages 8 and 9, and the fold out is between pages 16 and 17.
So I'm going to, let's see, add the.
By the way, I want to call out Josh. Thank you so much for all the links you're putting in. That's really cool.
Oh,
Josh is good people. He's a good guy. He's got his own Kickstarter right now too. For his
right? What's his Kickstarter?
Bang, Ballad of the Tiger. He's a comic book writer and artist. Yeah,
I'll check that out.
It's good people. And let me share the slipcase, because I know we got to start wrapping up. But let me share the slipcase here, so you guys can get a better idea. These so with the slipcase, this is what the cover of the artist edition.
So that's the Danger Girl book on its own, yeah.
Yeah, and then we're looking at a little different angle here, the Wildsiders.
Mm-hmm.
Then from this angle, just looking a little bit bigger.
And again, these are the books that are like this big. So what you're seeing there, these are giant.
So this slipcase is going to be larger than 12 by 17 because each of the 2 books is 12 by 17 inches. So it goes in this hardcover slipcase too, which, by the way, the design work was by just a great designer named Serban Crescescu, who's done a lot of stuff for Bongo. He's worked on the TV show Futurama, but we're lucky to have him. He does great stuff.
Yeah, the books are beautiful. I mean, I've been loving what I've been seeing.
I love the slipcase. I know that you've done limited editions or direct markets for your artist editions in the past. Have you done slipcases before?
I have. The David Mazzucchelli Batman Year One.
That one, that's right.
Limited edition had a slipcase. Maybe probably like half a dozen.
Man, this one looks awesome. I love the design. I love that there's just a different look on both sides.
It's fun too. You see that's my old signature too from that era. So it's kind of fun seeing it kind of as a as a graphic down there in the corner. So that's and all those images are of the era. I mean, that's a Sidney Savage from the original run. They're kind of blown up pop art style. So.
And I wanted to show the back again of the box set.
Yeah, and that's the Wildsiders side.
Yeah. That bring back memories looking at some of that stuff, huh?
Oh, of course. Yeah, for sure. And well, that's the funny thing too. Like as an artist, I tend to sometimes I cringe at art after it's been about like 2 or 3 years. You start to see the mistakes you didn't see right off the bat. You go, oh, like you don't see it right away. That's why artists try to do that thing where they turn it around to a mirror when they're drawing, because you won't always immediately see if eyes are out of arrangement, or you try to catch that stuff in real time by flipping the image sometimes. But sometimes about the way I've seen it is like 3 or 4 years down the road, I'll kind of cringe at my artwork because I'll catch all the mistakes and go, oh, wow, why didn't I see that at the time? You give it another 5 years and then it starts to become charming because now it's nostalgic and you're kind of like, oh, that was good times. So it's like there's always a life cycle of art, and both of these projects are definitely in that, like, I'm seeing the charm of the nostalgia now. So to me, while I can still look at Danger Girl pages and go, oh, I wouldn't draw it that way, I also wouldn't like George Lucas go in and change it. It is what it is. That's how it existed, and I love that people like that. So that's cool.
I hope that this excitement over this artist edition, and I'm seeing a lot of love for it on the first day that it's out, also brings people's attention to the absolute editions that have been out of print for years. Mm-hmm. The complete Danger Girl, all that stuff, man. Like, it's sought after. It's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people have been pointing out. I've seen it more than several times. People saying like, "Oh, you got to reprint the hardcover of Danger Girl." And in my opinion, we've reprinted a couple times over the years, but it has been a while.
Mhm.
So it's always good to see what people are saying. And
as a
and
guy that keeps up
Wildsiders,
with big collected editions,
oh yeah,
is my
sure.
main job. I know it's been out of print for quite a number of years. Yeah.
Right. It's and as we get older, time flies, and you don't realize just how much time sometimes something's been out of print. And in the case of Wildsiders, it was never reprinted. So this will be the first sort of in a way. Sometimes people, or maybe people will be seeing it for the first time, maybe ever since it originally came out this way. So
yeah, some people probably haven't even heard of it, so it's really cool that it's going to be part of this.
I'm sure. Like I said, it's an add-on. You don't have to get the Wildsiders book, but I actually think it's out of the two books, it's the one I've sort of had a little more fun with because it's kind of neat. I never would have ever considered putting that out, and if it wasn't for Scott sort of championing it, I wouldn't have really thought about it. But it's actually been a real joy putting it back together and realizing that we had everything in that case. You know, it's again, Danger Girl without a doubt is like the rock star of my original IP. So I'm very proud of that book. But I just love that the Wildsiders one is so complete. It's kind of neat that it's like it's everything is in there, which is really cool.
So as we wrap up, Scott, is there any last things that we didn't cover about this particular project you're working on? I guess outside of the date that you might hope to have this released after the Kickstarter. I don't know. It's always a thing with printers and things. I understand.
Well, the like I said, the first book is pretty much the Wildsiders book is pretty much done. You know, it's missing a few different pieces, but all the art is laid in. It's fully designed. The Danger Girl book is still a work in progress. I'm still trying to find more art. You know, for instance, I don't know what the page count's going to be. I won't know until I get a final count on all the art. But there's a hard deadline to approve to print December 10th. And December 10th means it'll be delivered to the Skybound facility in early May. And then it will be starting to be sent out from that facility on June 10th. So it's, it's going to be, it's a hard and fast deadline, and we're going to make it.
And bear in mind, we have plenty of great art already for the Danger Girl book. We just want to try to see if we can get as much in as possible if we find some more. In fact, we got leads on a couple pages we're hoping will turn up that would just be great additions to it. So it's more just like the more we can add, the better. But we already have a great book as it is, even if nothing else gets added.
Well, no, that's a great point. We do have more than enough to make the book right now. But I'm very anal about getting as much great material as possible.
What was that email address again, Scott, that people can email you in case they find they have Danger Girl original art?
Or any other great art they can email too about other artist editions. Scans@act4publishing.com. And just remember, it's the number 4, not spelled out. So act4. Great, thanks, Josh.
So that's the website, and then this is
and it's just scans at,
and that's the email address.
There you go.
Well, gentlemen, I just want to thank you so much for your time, for going over this and taking a trip down memory lane. And all's forgiven. Scott. I can't hold. I'm not a man that holds grudges. I mean, it's been 30 plus years since that Nintendo Power contest. That's okay.
You never know. Maybe PlayStation will have a contest. We'll both get a second chance
where you win again, and I'm reminded of that. Yeah, that's exactly right. And a big thank you to Shannon, of course, at Skybound for helping put this all together. Yeah. And how many days are in the Kickstarter? How many days?
It's a 30-day
30 days
Kickstarter, and this is the first day. And actually, fun fact: since we've been on, we started. It was at 240,000. Now it's at 252,000.
That's building at 253. Yeah. So it's and it says it has 28 days left to go according to this.
Nice. That's
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
backers.
It started at 30. So how does
I don't know.
it?
Maybe they're not counting the hours, Scott. Maybe there's something to do with that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, 604 backers. That's super awesome. Again, it's gratifying to see, because I think we're luckily living in an age where these kind of books can exist because of things like this. Because I think these are such a niche product, but I think we're living in the era that niche can like live and have its crowd. Because back in the day, you know, this might not have been a mainstream enough idea, but I think there's enough people who appreciate this type of book and this type of project that it's great to see it, you know, the support that's getting.
Yeah, I'm loving it. See, man, like you're a huge inspiration.
It's just so nice. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, and it's so nice to be able to see, you know, great art in this kind of a format, you know, and, you know, I mean, to be able to see J. Scott Campbell's work at full size from the originals is, you know, it's a treat, at least for me, you know, and for many of the books I do.
Yeah, and I'm just thrilled to be part of this line of amazing books. I mean, the talent he's been able to assemble from his other previous volumes. To steal a line from Wayne's World, I'm not worthy. You know, I feel like it's a little bit of that, but I'm thrilled to have him want to do this project, and it's been great putting it together with him and just sort of seeing the whole thing get to this point. You know, because this has been in the works. We've been talking about this, Scott, for like almost a year now, or maybe over a year, I think.
Over a year.
Yeah, so it's been a project that's in the works for a while just to get to this point.
Yeah, I'm glad you two are working together. It's about time, because I know you guys have been together for years.
Yeah, we've never worked together before, ever. You know?
And I know.
No, actually, we go all the way back. Actually, he was the original editor on Danger Girl. Isn't that crazy? So it is full circle. It actually is full circle. And like I said, his original art, like Scott Dunbier as a character appears on page 1 of Danger Girl #1. So, and he had that page framed.
Do you have that page, Scott? Oh,
I do, and it's in the book.
He had to break it out of the frame, and it's. I might even have my little note to you on the pages, I recall, so you'll see that on there. So. It
does. It has a self-portrait of you pointing, going. I think it's like, hey, first page of issue #1. How cool is that, or something like that?
something like that. So yeah, so that's it's only apropos that it's he's putting this book together, because it's full circle.
So again, thank you all for watching. And if you're watching this later, the description of the video does have the link to the Kickstarter and also Scott Dunbier's email, where you can reach out to him if you have original art, because he's always working on these wonderful books. But for now, we are out of here, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button on the way out.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.